And good morning. Welcome. I'm Jennifer Britton. I'm so pleased to be here today with my Remote Pathways podcast co-host, Michelle Mullins. Good morning, Michelle. How you doing?
Good morning, Jen. I am doing good. It's a steady rain outside, so the temptation is to curl up with my coffee and just enjoy this conversation with you and our listeners today.
Fantastic. Well, thank you as always for joining us for one of our two monthly community calls. Whether you're listening in live or likely listening after the fact, we want to invite you to join us for a quick 30 minutes for a little bit of coaching, a little bit of conversation, and hopefully some takeaways that you can apply in your work. So it's September 17th, 2020. Outside my window, it's bright and sunny. It's going to be another beautiful day. So isn't it interesting, right? Part of our world of work, we can be having the same conversation, but from very different contexts. And that's the beauty of co-working, right? Like think about your world right now. How often do you get to work real time with folks who are online with you? So how about you, Michelle? You brought this photo. Like, I want you to introduce this to us today because I think it's very cute. First, where did you find it?
I found it on Facebook. Somebody had posted it. It just cracked me up. I love to sprinkle a little humor in life, especially right now. And this is border collie working from home. So everybody's going remote.
Everyone has gone remote. As I've said,
Everyone's gone remote.
3 billion people right now are working remote. There was some interesting research that just came out here in Canada. And that survey, and I wish I'd printed it off last night, but that survey said, before COVID, it was about 29% people worked remote, then it went to 60%. But of those 60% who are now working remote, only 1 in 5, about 20%, actually want to go back to the office.
Mm.
So,
Wow. They discovered the treasure, right? It's not for everybody,
yeah.
but those that it's for, it's great. You're like, why wasn't I doing this sooner? I didn't even know this was an option and this could work so well. So that's
So again,
great. I love it.
what we love doing here at Remote Pathways is really exploring the different people, places, and pathways to remote work. And Michelle and I sat down recently. We've planned out season 2. So it's going to be a great season. Again, we're almost a year to our first year anniversary of the podcast. If you haven't joined us before, welcome. Check it out at remotepathways.com and, of course, on your favorite podcast players. If you do like an episode, please leave a review. It really helps us get out to others in the world. And as we know, everyone is working from home, even these border collies. So with that, we've got a quick exercise to get us started today. Michelle, take us through this, please.
Yeah. So this, if you're at home watching us online, what picture reminds you of co-working? It is a hot topic right now, all about co-working, what it is, what it's going to be. So just take a pause for a moment and consider what picture or pictures jump out to you. So what picture or pictures jump out to you, Jen, in this collage here?
It's so interesting. And I think we need to maybe define like what is co-working, right? Like what
Yeah.
does co-working mean? And that's part of what we do in the episode. And so co-working is really when you get to come together with colleagues. And what I was interested, Michelle pulled these photos together. And I was thinking, you know what, I've been working remotely for so long, even when I led teams, right? My teams were in 10 countries. I got out to see them every 6 months. So for me, co-working has been virtual and remote for many, many decades now, to be honest. And so when I looked at this, I was like, what is the photo? And so I'm going to have to go with the big skyscrapers, right? Like co-working. It was always fascinating for me to be leading teams in South America. And my bosses, as I said, even though I was a leader in the field, my bosses were people sitting 5,000 kilometers away from me, right?
Mm.
It was fascinating. My world was so different than their world. And what it meant was that I had a lot of autonomy, right? Like they just say, Jen, you need to do it. Or Jen, like it's all yours. It's your decision. We've got your back. So co-working, that's where I think it can take so many forms, and I've made it so many forms. So I don't want to hog the airtime here, but like to me, co-working is like virtual retreats. Co-working is like get it done afternoons. Co-working is like really, it's live online co-working experiences, as if we were like sitting down at the same table. And as we know right now, in times of social distancing, physical distancing, we need to stay in our bubbles. So with that, what about you, Michelle?
Yeah, I like the people walking in the woods because, like you said, the retreat, that's kind of where my heart is like you're going on an adventure together. And I do that with a lot of coaches. We'll set up days or a day or a couple hours where we'll meet at a coffee shop or meet at a retreat location in the beautiful mountains and say, hey, I got to knock out some work. You want to just sit side by side, social distancing, of course, but enjoy a pretty view while we're working. So that one, and then the thumbprints. I really like those because it's people coming together, doing their unique thing, but somehow they may end up connected, even if you're in the same space together. Just that creative energy that can come when you work on some in the same space, I guess.
So share with us. Again, we've got our Facebook page over under the Remote Pathways handle. You can find us over on Instagram at Remote Pathways. I think maybe I need to like do a little snip here and do an upload of like what reminds you of co-working. We'd love to hear what your sort of approach is, what gets sparked for you, because that's really our topic today. And we're just wrapping up. This is our last Q3 call. If you've been following these calls, we've also been tracking along my 2019 book, PlanDoTrack. And at section 4, at the end of section 4, I go into sort of several core business philosophies. This year we pulled out 4 of them. And what is really key to remote business, remote work, and productivity is we need to have a focus. We need to get into action and experiment. We need to really tap into our motivation. And this is going to be the last call where we want to really get you holding the space for a few minutes, thinking about what is motivating you right now as you're stepping into your perhaps fall routine, spring routine, wherever you are in the world, or maybe you're listening to this after the fact. Like, what's the rhythm of work for you right now? What's getting you excited? And what might be pulling you down, right? Remote work, and especially in the times of pandemic, it's hard. It's hard for those of us that are seasoned remote workers. So that's where I think it's even more important to really look at those levers of motivation. And because next call we'll be really focusing in on reflection, I want to just give you a nanosecond to think about your motivators and what's like really helping you thrive and excel and enjoy your work right now. So Michelle, I don't think I've asked you this year, but what is one of your motivational factors? What helps you spring out of bed in the morning and show up for great conversations?
You said it. It's all about conversations. I'm a very spiritual person, so of course my quiet time with God every morning. But then that just is the start to my day to have conversations with fabulous people and hear what's going on in the world, in their hearts, in their lives. I'm so curious about the people around me. So yeah, definitely that motivates me. Can't wait for the conversation. How about you, Jen?
I think the same, right? I really get motivated by seeing people in conversation and also seeing people in action. So to the topic today of co-working, I think that's that intersect, right? We can co-work safely virtually, and we can bring real-time work projects, get inspired. As you'll hear me share in our podcast episode number 20, it really is about, creating those moments where we can come together, learn, and get excited. So that's our topic. You'll see our topic thumbnail. Is it episode 21? I've been saying it's 20, but it really must be 21. So there we go. Co-working. Last call. If you missed this, we had a great conversation a few weeks ago, and I missed you, Michelle. It was just me with our community. Layers of remote work. If you have not listened into that call, it's new content, and it's something that Michelle and I evolved in terms of like the different layers that we can go into with the remote work. It's definitely going to become part and parcel of some new writing that's coming out, and I hope to have some fun updates next time we meet on the writing front. So, co-working structures. I love this. What type of co-working structures work for you? So, I don't know, do we each want to take one of these and talk about them? I think you and I both work on these areas. So
I do too.
which one do you want to start with, Michelle?
maybe we just dance throughout, since it's the two of us today. Why don't we dance a little bit through each of them? You want to? You want to
That
just
sounds
do
good. That
a
sounds good. So which
journey?
one do you want to start with?
Hey,
I'll
kick
kick.
off with those digital dozen. They look familiar.
They look familiar. I'm going to zoom in. And again, it's almost been a year since we introduced the digital dozen to you. These are the uh, really the folks that inspired this podcast, the Remote Pathways podcast. There's 12 different members of the Digital Dozen, from Sujit on the upper left corner, our project manager, to Joe, our remote team leader. We've got Alex there below, who is our virtual, voluntary sector employee. Little did we know a year ago when we were introducing these folks, and little did I know almost 2 years ago when I started writing about them, how the world really would become this. So Zoom calls are, for many of us, if it's not Zoom, it may be Teams or WebEx or other platforms. This is like the oxygen line, right? Like, how do we have conversation? Anything you want to mention about Zoom at this stage, or the DigiDozen?
I'm just so grateful. I can't imagine where we would be if we didn't have Zoom, right? I'm glad that platform exists because it's such the way to communicate right now, for teams to come together on purpose, just for community and collaboration. It's so important.
It's interesting, Michelle, that you raise like the importance of community and collaboration. A couple days ago, I was presenting to an HR community, human resource management community, on the importance of collaboration and coaching in the mentoring conversation. And what people were really interested in, and again, like a group of 200 folks that stayed with me for about an hour and a half for this lunch. It was a lunch and learn. It was a professional luncheon, and highly, highly engaged. But I asked the question, like, what is most important for you right now around collaboration? What do you think some of those skills were that came up that we need in order to collaborate and have great calls? Any thoughts?
No.
Trust.
Oh, trust, safety, and connection. Your
Trust, safety, and
main
connection.
hub. Trust
Yes,
is
the
so
triad.
huge right now. Yes. And so I'm very curious, what did they think would bring trust to the surface?
That,
How did they have
that's what we
feedback?
talked about through chat, right? So again, like we talked about, and again, how do you cultivate dialogue, not just talking at people? When you're on platforms, and we were on a platform that was not Zoom, not WebEx, it was a new platform that this association was experimenting with. It worked very well, but it did not allow for anything other than chat dialogue and
Mm.
polling. And so again, in the presentation that I was giving, had a lot of that. I also had some videos. So, how do you spark people in different ways to help them feel connected when they're part of a large group? 200 people is a pretty large group in the virtual space. So very different. We're going to go next to virtual retreats. And I do love this Zen pose. As many of you know, what I love about working with Michelle is we're two very different folks, right? Like, Michelle, you are like retreat. I am
Yes,
like
I am
business retreat. Let's
three-quarters
go, let's
retreat.
map it out. So virtual retreats can take a couple of different forms. And that's what I think we want to get very innovative in thinking about. What can virtual retreats look like? This is something I started experimenting with. I went back the other day because someone said, I first heard you talk, Jennifer, on a Blog Her podcast back in 2007. And I thought, wow, that's so interesting. I've actually been running virtual retreats for businesses since 2006, where
Mm.
people come together, spend the day, map out their vision, leave with a bit of either a more extended vision or even part of their business plan. So that's very different. And what's your favorite virtual retreat? You run so many virtual retreats yourself, Michelle. Which one do you like
Yeah.
to run for yourself?
I still love the Anchor Your Heart retreat because it taps into the spiritual. It gives you that time alone, time to just reflect, listen to your heart, listen to just that inner voice that is guiding you. And then part two is taking that revelation and making it practical application and designing around that. Because it's really powerful of what happens in the revelations that come forth when we're actually quiet and we're still and we're not afraid to tune in and listen. So Yes, I love it. And virtual retreats, you brought those into my life. It was such a gift to even know that that was possible. So thank you for that training, Jen.
My pleasure. My pleasure. I look forward. I'm spending the day today actually with a group of professionals who are going to be designing their own program. So we're going to jump over to the far end, which is the design. And you just said something which makes me want to take us to that like fifth one of design, or what I'm calling today a studio day, where people are going to be mapping out their processes. Like, how much silence are you getting in co-working? Again, I was in a recent call, and what was interesting, the host wanted to encourage action, but there was no thinking time. There was no quiet. There was no option to just be still and reflect. And the host kept talking and talking. So, how much space are you building in for people to have ideas, information, and stillness so that they can really have those moments of insight, which can happen on the call as well? So,
Yeah.
any comments on design? Again, this is a big
Well,
one. Blueprinting, road mapping. What comes to mind for you?
that design, I jump right over to that lunch and learn, right? So let's imagine you design a lunch and learn and you're coming together on purpose to learn something new. But then what's really important afterwards? You got to digest. You got to digest your food, and you got to digest the information that you just took in. So make sure that you're giving yourself that time and space. Like Jen said, it's really important to glean the insights from it.
Lunch and learns so popular, dinner and learns, right? Like, think about how you can be using some of this time, if you'd like, to learn and then possibly put into practice. We can have social time. I was sharing before this call with Michelle that I enjoyed dropping into one of my dropping in virtually to a local association that I'm a member of that I don't always get out to because like, I'm an hour on a good day with traffic. It would take an hour to get there for an evening meeting. But I was able to connect in, and I could just see from like people going, oh, it's so good to see you, because they don't get to see me that often. So like, how are we having learning moments, but also social time? And social time in times of COVID, of course, there's been the quarantini whole movement. There's been lots of different ways. These breakfast calls, right? It's another iteration of social time as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. It's a must for me. I gotta have my social time in. I wouldn't be having, what did you call it? Remote teenies or something like
Yeah,
that?
quarantinis was the
Quarantine.
term.
Yeah.
I don't drink anymore, but like, yeah, quarantinis. That's, I think for many that got many people through, like, the initial few months of the pandemic and feeling isolated. So whatever is going to work, whatever social means for you, and that helps us get conversations happening, flowing, and getting things done. So what do you want to get done this season? Anything you want to mention on conversations?
Oh no, I think we even traveled in there, right? The importance of a conversation. So yeah, get it done. I do love a task list. Something about it makes me feel like I'm accomplishing something. Sometimes I'll go back and put stuff on my list just so it's there so I can check it off. I don't know what that says about me, but it's part of my personality. So
It's part of what you bring to the world, right? Like, Michelle, we've touched on this in past episodes. You're a PlanDoTrack facilitator, Michelle, and part of that is helping people plan, get it done, and tracking. And I loved a few episodes ago, I think it was when we had Cindy with us. You showed your planner and how you use the whiteboard. So what's going to help you get things done? Can you actually accelerate that? Can you sort of put some like fuel on the fire by doing it with folks? And that's what I continue to see in my lab programs, which I think in 2021 will be mastermind programs. We'll have some get it done afternoons as well. Different rhythm than the challenges. And for some of you, you know how much I've fallen in love with the challenge model. In August, wrapped up the 5-day stand out virtually challenge. I'll be bringing more challenges. And what I love about challenges is it gets us into movement. It gets us into experimentation. It gets us into action. And there's nothing like that gamification component. And it's interesting, right? Again, as someone who has spoken in this space for a long time, 2020, big theming that's coming out is all around gamification. So how are you using, games, ideas to just motivate people, shake things up a little bit? Any comments on that, Michelle? Because I think in your e-learning background, you've done quite a bit in this space as well. Anything that you want to point to?
I don't know if it goes to e-learning, but what I would like to do is do like a remote scavenger hunt. Something setting up the remote worker, but have that checklist, but make it interactive and give prizes. I love when people win things. So something like that. That just
You know,
sounds exciting to me.
yeah, like that prize thing. I've never sort of given away prizes, but I in the Standout Virtually Challenge this summer that I hosted over at the RVRH, which is a remote and virtual visionaries hub, I did daily prizes, and it was so fascinating to see. People are like, "Yeah, I want a set of those digital cards that you have, Jennifer." Yeah, and I think really it did motivate some folks. So,
I
what are the
like
levers?
tangible rewards. I
Yeah,
just
well,
do.
Q3, right? But motivation, gamification, it goes hand in hand.
Yeah.
So, final one we want to touch on today is just team time. And as many teams are now moving into indefinite periods of working remote, really think about what is going to help your team connect,
Mhm.
connect for relationships, and connect for results. And again, while we may not be able to physically touch each other, how can we continue the conversation? Because teams need to keep running. They are the engines of many businesses, many organizations. So how do we ensure that they're still getting the time and focus and attention that they need? All right. Final comments before we move out of here.
Let's roll. I think we're moving down that timeline.
Moving down that timeline. All right. Let's see. I think, and Zoom wants me to stay on this slide.
Does
Oh,
it
there we
really?
go. So, favorite co-working experience. I think you've probably heard our stories here. Anything you want to add, Michelle?
Oh, please share your experiences with us. As you watch this video, hop on over to our social media challenges or give us a call. Let us know what's working for you.
So as always, just look us up at Remote Pathways. There is a download. It's the remote co-working download where we want you to think about like what's your 5 W's and an H, as I like to say. So what's the what, why, what and why would you be doing this? Who would you be co-working with? Where would you be co-working? When would you do it? And how would you do it? And so we hope that our episode 21, not 20, as I said, episode 21 really takes you into that space of co-working in the remote space. And again, you can find that on any one of your podcast players. We're continuing along at the blog, and the latest is all about boundaries. So really want to invite you to think about what are the boundaries you're enacting? What are the boundaries that are working? And maybe as you move into Q4 or whatever quarter you're in the year, what are the boundaries that need to be revisited and reactivated? I think for all of us, there's probably one or two boundaries that need a little shoring up. Any comments on that, Michelle?
No, just reinforcing what you just said. Boundaries, vital.
And many times we can get that from peers. So our conversation sparker this week is, what support do you want from your peers? And how are you asking for that support? What are you doing to activate that support? Think about that question as you move forward. Our quote of the week, Jim Rohn: you must either modify your dreams or magnify your skills.
Love
Michelle,
that.
you picked this one. Tell us the backstory.
Yeah, I'm in the Modify Your Dreams. 2021 is a big year for me, and I'm choosing which skills to magnify. So I'm investing in them so that I can be prepared to pivot, so to speak. And pivot's a good word. Pivot has to do with what's coming next, right? In our remote episodes.
Yeah. Pivot has been really our theme for the world probably in 2020. If I had stock on hearing the word pivot, even for a penny, which we no longer have in Canada, I'd be a pretty rich woman right now. But anyways, I love this. Modify, magnify. What's it going to be? Can it be both? I think it probably can be both. That's what I would say. And here's where we're going next. Super excited. We've got Kristen Winkle-Beck joining us. She is talking about pivoting from in-person to remote events quickly. And you'll hear our conversation with her a short while ago about what she did in her work and her organization. Michelle, I know you've known Kristen longer than I have. Anything else that you want to spotlight to just sort of lay the foundation for what will be episode 22?
Yeah, Kristen is fabulous. And she really, this isn't just talk. She had to put it into action because when COVID happened, she already had an event planned and very important event for their organization. And she truly had to pivot really quickly. So she's got some wisdom there for, and everybody's trying to figure out how to do their in-person into the virtual world. So I think it's going to be a very valuable conversation. And plus you'll just fall in love with Kristen like we did. So can't wait for you to hear.
So stay tuned, check it out, remotepathways.com. I am stepping into the Standout Virtually Masterclass Studio Day in about an hour. Stay tuned. There's more under this umbrella of Standout Virtually, including another challenge coming your way in the month of October 2020. Our next call, Thursday, October 1st, we will be back. And who's joining us? Is Kristen joining us that morning?
I'm hoping so. I'm having a conversation with Kristen. So Kristen, if you're watching this, I'm going to be calling you to see if you'll join us for this important conversation.
Stay tuned. It's evolutionary. And are there any projects you want to highlight this month, Michelle, what you're focusing on?
I'm keeping nothing special. I think we just put all focus on your challenge right now and your masterclass you have today. Just tune in. I'll have more to share later. So
yeah, always works in progress. Thank you as always for joining us for some time. With that, final words go to you, Michelle.
Yeah, just have a fabulous day, whether it's raining or sun shining or just whatever your environment is. Tune in, digest some of this information, and figure out where you want to go remote today.
Have a good one. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.